What's going on, guys? Welcome to Martin's 3D. Today we are going to start my new series of DIY instead of buy, where I show you all the things that you can make instead of buy. With prices rising every year, being a maker is starting to be more like a good financial choice rather than just a hobby. Now today we are going to be using the Snapmaker Artisan Pro. Now this thing is a 3-in-1 machine. It can 3D print, it can laser cut and etch, and then it's a CNC machine as well, which is pretty cool. Now, Snapmaker did not pay me to do this. They just sent it to me to make content. All they asked was that I send them any videos before I launch them. That way they can correct any technical details before I send it out to you guys. But all opinions of this thing are my own. Now, I know most people like to save the best project for last, but for here, we're going to go with my favorite project number 1. And this one is my favorite because it probably saved me the most money, and honestly, designing it was probably the hardest out of all these projects that I've had to do. See, I was scrolling through Facebook Marketplace like I tend to do because, you know, you gotta save some money sometimes and I like to buy things used. The freezer in my house just wasn't cutting it. I just didn't have enough room, so I was looking for a nice used freezer. Eventually I happened upon one that was pretty cool. The only problem was it only came with 2 of the door shelves. And you can see here that it has room for plenty more door shelves. So my first thought, okay, we'll just go onto Whirlpool's website and buy some aftermarket ones from them. So eventually I find that that was already hard enough. And I finally happen upon them, and you're looking at $85 a piece for these door shelves. Mind you, I only have 2 right now, and I would like to have at least 3 or 4. So let's face it, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on a few door shelves just to make my life a little bit more convenient. So then finally I opened up Shaper 3D and I started designing it. Now I am not the best designer. I've only been doing this for about a year, at least with the Shaper 3D. So it did take me probably a good few hours just to get a good mock-up of what I was looking for. And unfortunately, when I first printed this thing, I didn't have the Artisan with the full bed plate. All I had was my Bamboo P1S with the 250mm bed plate. So what I had to do was cut this thing in half. So I cut it in half and I printed it, and hey, look, it fit perfectly. So that's where having the larger bed size with the Snapmaker came in a clutch, because now I was able to print out full pieces instead of just halves. Now, since this is going into a freezer, I decided I would use PETG for this project. It might in the future need something stronger than PETG, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Now, Snapmaker sent me this red PG that I'm going to be using for this. Honestly, it's going in a garage freezer. I don't really care what color it is, so Snapmaker sent it. Let's use it. So after the first 2 successfully came out, I was really happy with how they turned out compared to the first one that I printed on the Bamboo. Decided, hey, why not? Let's print a 3rd one. Alright, so checking out number 3, it looks pretty good, just like the first 2, so let's get these prepped, because I did have a little bit of stringing. The filament was a little bit wet, which kind of disappointing, but it is what it is. Again, these are going in a garage freezer, so they don't need to be too pretty. Now, I made these just a tad bit too wide. You see I gotta force it in there just a little bit, but again, that's just me not dialing in my measurements properly, but it's fine. They still look pretty good, and they're not going to be moving anywhere anytime soon. Now let's load up some breakfast burritos in here so that everything is ready to go and everything is evenly spaced out. Don't have enough shelves for your freezer? Just print more. That's fine. So, had I paid for this Snapmaker roll, I use about 3/4 of it, and I know most rolls go for anywhere between $20 and $25. So I'm going to say that my total cost for this project was about $20, which that's almost a $200 savings after shipping, because they were still going to charge me shipping to ship those bins. So I spent $20, could have spent $200. I call that a win. All right, for project number 2, let's dial it back a lot to something a lot more simpler. Something that anybody could do with a little bit of CAD knowledge. See, a couple years ago, the very first thing that I designed when first getting into 3D printing was some retainer clips for that glass pane that's on my front door. See, most of the clips were either gone, broken, or just starting to yellow and to crack. So I knew eventually that pane was just going to fall right out. Now, yes, you can buy retainer clips from the big A store for anywhere between $5 and $15. They are not that expensive, but let's be honest, if you're watching this, you're probably a maker and you probably enjoy making things. So the point of this is to make something and yeah, save a little bit of money while you're at it. So I want to start by measuring my old dimensions because I don't have the originals anymore and because I like how these fit. Measuring out the old dimensions, we have 28 millimeter length, 17 millimeter depth, and 19 millimeter width. So we're going to open up Shaper 3D. And for me, we're going to start by building a square to the dimensions that we got. Now I'm going to add a few circles, and this is where the screws are going to go eventually, and extrude to our depth that we measured earlier. Now we're going to add a side construction plane for shaping out our final shape, and then we're going to carve this out to its final form. Now I'm going to select everything and I'm going to hit the F button, or you can go over to the sidebar and select the fillet option. And now lastly, we're going to add some little bit of decorative touches to it. I'm going to draw a handful of lines on the top of this. And then we're going to extrude again, but we're going to make indentations into this thing. Now, since these are going to be exposed to a little bit of light throughout the day, we are going to print this out of PETG instead of PLA just because I don't want any of the PLA having to warp over time. Plus, these are going to be somewhat structural, not a ton, but they need to at least hold this glass pane in, and I don't want to come home one day and it just be on the ground broken. So we're going to be using Snapmaker's white PETG. So these only took about an hour to print. I think it was an hour 15, and I printed them at the 0.16 layer height with the 4 millimeter nozzle. Looking back now, I think I want to get some white screws just so that they match a little bit better. These old screws probably need to be updated a little bit as well, but otherwise it's pretty functional, so I'm pretty happy with that so far. Honestly, there's just really something about making up your own design and it actually being functional and it actually working. What do you guys think about that one? Project number 3. Okay, this one's kind of a fun one, and it's the first one that we get to use more than just the 3D printing module for the Snapmaker Artisan Pro. So recently I decided to redo my office. Originally the walls were white and I decided to make them beige just for that whole, it's more calming effect, you know? I'm not sure I like it yet, but we will figure that out eventually. And then I also added some of that new click-in flooring because the old floor was just beat up to crap and I needed to update it a little bit. Now, since I was updating the office, I wanted to update the floor vents as well, and I didn't want to go with the ones that were already in there. I kind of like the idea of getting some more modern ones, and I like those ones that just use the same flooring that you're already using as their top panel, so it almost just looks invisible. Now, searching the interwebs for what I wanted, I was able to find it, but the right design was anywhere from $20 to $200 depending on the manufacturer. And again, I'm a maker. I can fix that. So I got onto thingiverse.com and I just started searching, and I found somebody called Andrew DaCosta, and he had the perfect design for what I was looking for. So once I had this one sized to where it needed to be to fit the hole in my floor, I decided to use black PETG for this one as well. Now, I probably could have gotten away with PLA, but being that it's a floor vent that gets heat, I decided to err on the side of caution and use the black PETG just in case. 4 whole hours for me, a couple seconds for you guys. Oh no, I forgot to clean off the bed plate. That's fine. That's going to land on the bottom anyway. How are you? Oh, look at those supports. Just came right off. It's always nice. There we go. There we go. All right, this just slots. I can do it with one hand. Yep, that just slots right in there. Now let's cut out the wood for this. So if you guys follow me on TikTok, you'll already know this part, and I just wanted to throw this in here. I was using my DJI Osmo Action, the gimbal one, for this part of it, and I bumped the Osmo and it went flying and it corrupted all the footage for when I was showing you guys designing the CNC portion of this. But I'm going to show you now the aftermath of how it looks once it was all glued in and once it was all cut up. So I apologize about that, but mistakes happen. That's why you get insurance on your cameras. All right, bye. So it's really simple. You just put that first piece in, and then you take your other panel once your wood is glued in there, and you just slot it right in there. You will see that I accidentally pushed that down too far, unfortunately, and now I'm kind of stuck with it. And then I have not put in the baseboards yet, but otherwise I think this looks pretty cool. I just need to take that panel out and readjust it. So what do you guys think about that one? I think it's kind of cool to just add in that little extra modern touch, but use 3D printing to do so. What do you think? Project number 4. I'm not weird, you're weird. All right, for this next one, I might have forgotten about Mother's Day until like the very last second. So when I'm doing this project, it's a day before Mother's Day, and I'm actually recording this like a week later or something. So for Mother's Day this year, I want to make something special for my godmother from my daughter and myself. Now last year we all went on vacation down to Tennessee to hang out down there for a weekend, or it might have been a week, I don't remember. And I wanted to use one of the pictures that we took down on that weekend for this Mother's Day present. Now my thought on this one was that I wanted to make a shadow box. So I figured what I'm going to do is I'm going to 3D print the actual shadow box, and then I'm going to laser etch on some acrylic our actual picture. Now her favorite color is purple, so I figured I would grab some purple acrylic, and then I would use some black PETG or some black PLA for the shadow box itself. So we're going to hop into my favorite editing program, Shaper 3D. Now first I'm just going to create a basic block the size of the acrylic. And next I want to hollow it out so that the acrylic can actually fit in there. And then make it a little bit larger, add some clearance so that the acrylic fits in there and has more of a shadow effect. And then this is my first time making a keyhole for mounting, so forgive me if this is not good, but this is my first time doing it, so it is what it is. Don't come at me in the comments if this is the wrong way. Actually, you know what? Do come at me in the comments. Comment how to do it better. Now I'm just adding a little bit of a riser so that the acrylic can sit up a little bit more, giving it even more of a in-depth shadow. So I'm still very new to the laser cutting side of things, and honestly it takes a lot of practice, just like 3D printing does, but I have a few years of 3D printing and practice doing that. So the laser cutting thing is still new to me, so I'm going to give you a heads up on that it is not perfect on my end. You want to make sure that you have your laser lined up properly, and it gives you the option to run the boundary to show you where your laser is going to be cutting. So just make sure you understand where it's going to be cutting before you actually hit start, so that you don't waste a ton of material. Okay, so this is the picture that we're going to be using, and I'm going to import this into Canva. Now first I'm just going to click on the background remover to see if it gets everything, and of course it doesn't. So now I'm going to go in and manually remove all of the extra pieces that the auto background remover didn't get. And you want to make sure to get all the little details so that this is clean as possible. And then next you want to export it as an SVG. That's the file format that laser cutters use. So make sure it's an SVG, not a PNG. And then we're going to use Snapmaker's Lubin software. So select laser cutter, and then here in the workpiece, you're selecting the size of your piece. So for me, this is the 300 by 200 piece of acrylic. Then I'm going to import my image, and I'm going to make sure that on the right side it says grayscale. And just move the image to where you want it to be. Select grayscale on the right, and then make sure that your settings are correct. I'm just messing around to see what looks the best. And then you're going to create a toolpath and select vector engraving is what you want here. So for my first try with the laser cutter, you'll see that I mixed up the X and the Y axis, and I had the acrylic turned the incorrect direction. And that's what I'm talking about when I say make sure you know where your boundaries are at before you actually hit start. Okay, first successful try with the laser and the acrylic. Some things went really good, some things not so much. So let's review that. So technically it worked. The picture all laser cut out properly. The problems are probably mostly aesthetic. Her teeth are red, which I guess that would make sense being that this is red. And it just kind of doesn't look right with red teeth, and aesthetically it's just not what I thought in my head would look good. And then the other problem was I think I had the heat too high, so you can see it kind of warped a little bit. I was only using double-sided tape to hold it down, so maybe that was the problem. I'm not sure, but honestly it doesn't look as good as I wanted it to look. So we are going to try engraving this on some wood instead to see how that turns out. All right, for the second try we used some plywood and it looks great, I think. I probably could have used a little bit more power on the laser because the etching is a little bit soft in my opinion, but it works for what I'm trying to do. So I'm adding some spacers into the sides of the shadow box so that I can make sure that this is even. And then I'm going to use some Kraken super glue and some activator spray to get this thing mounted into the shadow box. And it doesn't look half bad. Again, this is one of my very first attempts at doing this, but I think the more I do this, the better I'm going to get. Alright, so now let's say you have a pet and they needed a dog tag or a little cat tag, some type of identification. You can go up to the pet store and pay a couple bucks to get a tag made, or you can use the CNC to make your own tag. Look at this guy, little guy. It's only about 20 millimeters. Hopefully that's focusing. Yeah, that's focusing. It's only about 20 millimeters, but I think we can get some good results just out of the CNC. All right, so we're heading back into the Snapmaker Lubin software, and I'm going to set up my job size 19 by 19. And we are going to call this animal Spike. Don't you love the name Spike? And now we're going to add in the phone number, and then you're going to see that that's just not going to work out in a second here, just because I can't get the sizes properly. So here I'm realizing that. Make Spike bigger, that way it all fits. And then we're going to add the phone number underneath that. And then size it back down so that it eventually fits. Especially running with a small size like 20 by 20. It's a little bit more complicated. And then next I'm going to import a little circle so that we can make sure that this all lines in here, because obviously we're working with a square at the moment. And then now once we have this all lined up, we're going to create a toolpath I'm going to select the carving bit that I'm using, and here's where I messed up and said that I wanted it 0.5 millimeters. That was definitely too deep for what we're doing here, but you'll see that in a second here. I'm just going to add a little bit of crack and super glue with some activator spray to this thing to keep it held down, since you can't really put any clamps on this thing. Hold that down just for a second to make sure it sticks, and then spray all the excess that comes out, you know. The first one just got done. Let's check it out. Okay, I probably didn't need to go as deep as I went. I went a 0.5 millimeter. I probably could have just gone 1/10, but it turned out just fine. If it'll focus. It wants to focus on my eye. So, if it's focusing, there we go. Now we got some focusing. But yeah, for spending a couple minutes on the CNC, I think that's pretty good. And that's my first time doing that. That'd be pretty cool if I can just dial that in a little bit. I think next time I'll go with 1/10 of a millimeter, not a full 0.5 millimeter. But pretty cool to go from this little keychain to that. What do you guys think? So, final thoughts. What do you guys think of some of these projects? Obviously, some are a little bit rough around the edges, but most of that, I think, is due to my inexperience with using some of the extra modules and just using some of the new softwares that I've never had to learn before. But I think it's a great start to the DIY instead of buy movement. What are your thoughts? I think right now is the perfect time to be a maker, and if your space is limited, I think just having one machine like a 3-in-1 that can do everything. You don't need to buy a 3D printer and a laser cutter and a CNC and a what's the other thing, a Cricut. I think that might be a laser cutter. I don't know. I don't even know what a Cricut is, but I'm rambling. So a 3-in-1 is a great idea for being a maker right now. And now I would love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think of some of these projects, and what other projects do you think that we can make instead of actually having to buy? I am game to try anything. Listen, if I've given you guys any type of entertainment or any information in this video, I would definitely appreciate a like and a follow and a share. It helps me out a ton. If you liked any of the products in this video, including the Snapmaker or some of the filament that I've used, I've left links below to everything. Now, disclaimer, they are all affiliate links. They don't raise the price at all, but I do get a little bit of kickback, and it helps me continue making videos like this for you guys. Alright guys, so while I am sitting here and editing this video, I just got an email from Snapmaker, and they just sent me a discount code that I didn't even ask for you guys. So I'm going to put that discount code up right here. And then I'm also going to put it down in the description. If you use that discount code, you're going to get 5% off. And then on top of that, Snapmaker is now currently running a contest where you can also enter your DIY instead of buy videos. And you have the possibility of winning a very nice prize. I think this actual printer that I'm using for this project is one of the prizes. So if you want to buy a Artisan Pro, I have a link below with my affiliate code and the discount code as well. And then you can also sign up to enter into one of their contests once you get your printer to maybe win another one or win other stuff. They have more than just the printers. They have a ton of extra supplies and everything else. So check it out, guys. Thanks all for watching. This is Martin's 3D. Let's keep building layer by layer. See you next time. Layer by layer sounds really stupid. It's like the cookie crumble. That's how the cookie crumbles. No. This has been Martin's 3D. Come make with me. I'll see you next time. Come make with me, or layer by layer. Come wake with me. No, come make with me. Martin's 3D, come make with me. I don't know. Layer by layer just kind of reminds me of Bruce Almighty when he's like, and that's how the cookie crumbles. And it's all awkward and stuff. Layer by layer, make with me. Martin's 3D. Come make with me. I'm gonna change Martin's 3D to something else. I don't know. Oh no, I dropped it. Of course I dropped it. That's a screw. Where did that come from? I would drop it as soon as I turn on the camera, huh? Project number 5. Project number 5. Why am I doing that? This next one's a fun little project. Do you have a pet? I don't. I used to. That just made it awkward. This next one's a fun little project. Let's say you need a new tag for your favorite furry lover. No, that sounds wrong.